All right, so jumping kind of right into her video, she says, roll the video tape.
As of recently has been on my mind.
She's loud.
And I consider myself a teacher, a helper, someone who could possibly inspire.
And if you followed the Jada Pinkett Will Smith sort of fiasco with the whole entanglement, doesn't this sound like the exact same shit? Where she says like, "Oh, I consider myself a healer, and I was trying to help this poor boy, and I landed on his whatever, and I had an affair." I swear, man.
People to be better. So, with that being said, this is a PSA for all the men out there and all the boys who think they're men, but they're actually boys.
For all the boys that think they're men, but they're actually boys. So this is a typical kind of female rant.
This is going to be the summer of canceling boys. Now, from my own personal experiences and the experiences of all of my friends, which range in age from 24 to 36, we've all got issues.
So the age range is kind of important because 24 to 36, like once you're like approaching 25, you're already approaching the wall. Some women have a, because obviously if you're 18 to 22, 23, 24, it's very easy for you to be able to garner a relationship. For all these young women that wait and focus on their careers, they focus on their education, etc. It becomes a little bit harder because there's always basically a new stream of beautiful women, right? There's always a new crop, as they say. There's always a new crop of beautiful women who just turn 18, 19, 20, etc. So as for women, always have to compete with that. Whereas that's not the case with men, because there isn't always a new crop of a large amount of well-to-do men. If anything, they're very few and far between. But beautiful women, it's like a dime a dozen.
Now, I will also say this. All of my friends are attractive.
And again, that's from her perspective, right? It's not from the male's perspective. It's not the men that are saying, the well-to-do men that are saying that these women are attractive. She's saying, my friends are attractive, I'm attractive, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So if I'm the one who is beholding you, and I don't find you all that attractive, well, then that's just my perspective. That's my, everybody has their own tastes in what they're interested in, right?
All of my friends are successful. All of my friends have something going on. Almost every single one of them have an issue with men. And you have to start looking at that and thinking, if an age range of that many people, including myself, living really all over the country and being blonde, brunette, short hair, long hair, tan, super white, super pale. These women range in every body type and everything. They're all successful, they're all intelligent, they're all good people. But if all of these women, including myself, are having issues, then I have to think, it might not be us. It might be you. It might be men. It might be men. Now,
Now, she says, one thing that she doesn't go into, obviously are the personality types, because that's typically what matters even more for a man. Yes, you're typically looking for a woman that you find attractive, but what keeps you attached, or what keeps you engaged within the women that you meet is going to be the personality type that they have. They always say for every beautiful woman, there's a man that's tired of her shit, right? And that's just a reality. You may look at a woman, you may find her attractive, but then once you start to talk to her and you engage with her, like what comes out of her mouth is less attractive and kind of like lowers her value in your eyes. But she doesn't, of course, doesn't go into that. What she refers to is what typically what women find attractive, right? People who have things going on in their lives, they're well-to-do, they're educated. Those are typically the things that women value in men who have busy on their purpose, who are focused, educated, well-to-do men. This is typically what women look for. And so here you have a woman who is thinking more like a man and viewing men from the perspective of the female mind.
Talked about the pussification of America and how men are no longer men. I talked to my mom about this a lot, and she says, well, maybe it's just the guys in Texas. Maybe it's just the guys in Los Angeles. Maybe it's just the guys. It is not just the guys in Los Angeles, Nashville, Dallas, and they're not any better in the Midwest. They, quite frankly, I think they're trash all over this country in
Woo!
the age range of about 20 to I think about 55, maybe even 60. A lot of men are trash. A lot of
Jesus, man, she's just like how many generations of men?
men don't know how to treat women.
She must get around a lot. She must get around a lot if she's dealt with all these wide variety and ages of men.
A lot of men don't know how to really, quite frankly, pull their heads out of the sand and pay attention.
And the weird thing is if you're a woman and you've dealt with men who are in their 20s, you've dealt with men who are in their 30s, you've dealt with men who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s and so on, and ain't none of them looking to settle down or are interested in having anything like long term with you or in progressing. Well, maybe it isn't the men. Maybe it is you.
So I am going to help you. And these are some of the things that I've experienced, and these are some of the things my friends have experienced. I'm just going to lay a few things out. They haven't all happened to me. Some of them have just happened to my friends. A lot of them have happened to me. So the first thing, and I've made notes, by the way. I've made notes. This is how invested I am in this, because I've been thinking about this for about 2 weeks solid now. First question.
And this is typically one of the worst moments in a man's life, when the woman in his life says, we need to talk.
Question for men. If you like a girl, if you're even somewhat interested in a girl, you need to ask yourself this question. Are you single? No, I don't mean are you kind of single, seeing 5 people, dating somebody, still kind of in a relationship, kind of broken up, kind of on again, off again, kind of married, kind of divorced. Are you actually single? That means single.
I mean, shit, man. Like I said previously in another video, if you're a guy who you walk into a club or a bar and maybe you have a good looking girlfriend, the other women who are there would love nothing more than to take you away from her. I mean, so when she talks about that, to make sure that you're single, like single, not just like seeing somebody on the side or like in the middle of a break, etc. But these are typically the men that women find themselves attracted to. I mean, there's a reason why, like, what is that website? Ashley Madison. It's one of the reasons why it's so popular. And I think they said 25% of the women who are on Ashley Madison are single college women, right? Who are just looking to jump into. That's typically if you're a man who is married. That's why a lot of these married men get so much attention, right? They get so much attention because it's the pre-selection. If one woman is interested in you, then you must have something of value that keeps that attention of that woman, and then it intrigues other women. It's just like when I used to go out clubbing here in the city, and I would talk to a female right here, and then out the corner of my eye I would notice another female who would be watching the engagement, and then as soon as I finished talking to that woman, she would start looking at me and smiling at me. I would just go right up and talk to her, and I would just do that. I would just go from person to person. Once I exhausted kind of all the individuals that I wanted to talk to, I would leave. And it was actually an easy way, because I used to go out a lot by myself here in the city, and it just becomes easier. It just becomes easy to meet women, because they'd be like, oh, like, who are you here with? And I'd be like, I'm here by myself. I'm just here to meet women. And of course, that's not an answer that a lot of women would get. And most men who go out typically don't go out by themselves. And so if you're a man who understands that, then you will always have, like I said, you'll always have this flood of women who will be interested in you. If you're a guy, and a lot of times women don't even give you the time of day. If you try to cold approach somebody on the street, I mean, unless you're really good looking. But if you're walking out and you're in your gym clothes and like your hair is all messed up, you just woke up and you're just going to get something to eat, I mean, it's a different story than when you're all dressed up and you're pulling up, in a fancy car. Very different story. And so this is something, of course, that as a female, she just, doesn't understand that the men that she's interested in will always have a steady stream of women. And that's just something that she would have to get used to. And of course, she doesn't like the fact that she has to compete for a man's attention, because she feels in her eyes, that she is of high value. From her perspective, from her in her eyes, she views herself as being high value, and she's upset that these men are not equally viewing her in the same light.
You have nobody. You have no complications. You have no attachments. You are actually single. That is the first question, believe it or not, that needs to be asked. And ladies, you should be asking it, because in 2020, it's not a given anymore that a guy that's actively pursuing you is actually single.
But the thing is, from a female perspective, and same thing from a male perspective, I mean, if you come across someone who's fairly attractive and you're checking all the boxes, that they're in shape, they're well-to-do, they're educated, etc., the first thing that comes to mind is, well, why are you single? I used to get that shit all the time. And I would just straightforwardly say, I'm just not really looking for a long-term relationship at this point.
So that's the first thing. The second thing that I think is very important that men don't seem to understand. There are very few women out there, and I'm speaking from personal experience as well as from all of my friends and all the women, quite frankly, that I talk to. There is not a woman out there that wants to be your pen pal. She doesn't want to get your texts, your good morning texts.
This is important for a lot of you men who like to text.
Your good night texts, your random through the day texts, if they don't follow up with a plan to actually, here's the kicker, in person, hang out. Now, I know what you're saying. Oh, it's COVID. People can't hang out in person. This has not been a 4-month problem. This has been a 5-year problem that I've experienced with men, and my friends have experienced with men. Women do not want a pen pal. We don't want a texting pal. We quite frankly don't care if you text us all day or if you don't text us at all. If you're not going to make a plan to actually see us in person, not interested. And if you do have a woman out there that just wants to be your pen pal, it's probably because she has a boyfriend. Amen. Or a husband or a wife or whatever. We don't want a pen pal. With that,
and I would say that's 100% true. 100% true. A lot of men get into the mistake of texting a lot. You don't have to sit there and tell them how interested you are. If you've already gotten the person's phone number, then typically I just go ahead, have a short conversation with the individual. Because typically when I come across someone, depending upon where I've met them, you don't know the person, right? So you kind of, from a man perspective, you want to qualify the person. I want to see if this person's even worth my time going out with. Forget about, I literally don't meet anybody that's further down than my block, especially on the first date. I wouldn't meet anybody that's further than having to go down to the local bar, because where I live, it's all bars and restaurants. So I wouldn't go anywhere to meet anybody. That's just me. If I was making a date for somebody, it'd be like, I live right here. There's bars and restaurants. If you want to go somewhere, let me know. Right? We'll go right down the block. There's plenty of bars to choose from. And that's just me. And that's just because I'm very busy and I don't want to waste a lot of time getting all dressed up. You go out with the person. Yeah, the person looks good, but then you start to have a conversation with them, and then the person is just like not worth your time. So I wouldn't want to waste time traveling. Again, that's just me. And I wholeheartedly agree with what she said. A lot of guys spend way too much time texting and trying to have a spark of conversation, trying to see, kind of like trying to make it happen, as they say. And of course, you get into the mistake. And when you, like she said, if you're not going to meet, there's no point in texting. And I wholeheartedly agree. The only purpose really for the only purpose for talking over the phone is to set a date. It's the same thing, just like if I had a patient who wanted service, because I do private nursing, right? And they start asking all these questions and they want to like call, etc. And I'd be like, either you're looking to set up an in-home visit where we can start negotiating about price. Otherwise, realistically, the person would be wasting my time. And so I would limit my conversations with a lot of these individuals who were kind of like on the fence, off the fence. Either you're looking for service or you're not. If you're not, let me know when you are. And that's exactly how I would handle meeting women. Either you're interested in meeting and let me know what day that you're free, and then we can meet up, or you're wasting my time because I got other shit to do. And so I wholeheartedly agree with what you said. And if you're a man and you do too much texting, I would encourage you to take what you said to heart.
That also leads me to my second point. This is gonna be backwards for you guys. Make plans. Make a plan. Do not assume that you can text somebody randomly in the middle of the day, what are you doing? Or text them at midnight or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or
those are those late night booty calls.
Or even just within hours of when you actually want to see them and think that they're going to be available. I personally, once I get home and I take my makeup off, and I'm watching TV, I'm no longer interested. So if you didn't make a plan earlier in the day, or better yet, a day or 2 or 3 in advance, I'm not interested. I don't want to hang out anymore because that ship has sailed.
And I would say again, this is another good point. If you're if you're a guy who's if you're a guy who's busy, right? If you're you're working, maybe you're working a 9 to 5, but you've got a side gig, whatever it is, right? Maybe you work as a plumber, you work for a company, but then you're kind of working on your own thing on the side, right? Maybe you're a nurse, but then you're going to school for your nurse practitioners and you're trying to start your own business. You maybe want to open up a clinic, right? There's all variations. There's nothing wrong with working for someone, but the goal should be independence, to work and be able to do things on your own. So if you're a person who's doing that, your time is typically limited because you still got to make time to cook and prepare and do meal prepping and at home. You still got to make time to hit the gym, 3-4 times a week. So your time in terms of your availability to meet with a woman is very limited. Maybe you've got 1 or 2 days where you're free during the week. And so I that's exactly what I would do. I would look at my schedule, see where I'm at. If I met a new person, I'd be like, well, I'm free on this day. And I'm gonna go do X, right? Because maybe I wanted to go to a club here in the city, or maybe I wanted to go do like go to a lounge or do happy hour, at one of these lounges here in the city. And so I'd be like, well, I'm off on this day. I'm probably gonna go down to the lounges here. Let me know if you want to join me, because I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go out regardless. If that's my day where I have a little bit of time where I'm gonna go out and relax and unwind, I'm gonna do that whether you show up or not.